Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. One quick announcement before we get started. Basically, I'm looking for guests on Giants Baseball 101. I've been soloing for a long time and it'd be good to get some variety. So if you're interested, please shoot me an email. You know where to do it. It's in the description box. I just want to explain something. Don't misunderstand. It's not some free-for-all event. Oh yeah, I love baseball. I want to join you on. No, it's you shoot me an email and you explain your baseball knowledge and specifically how it relates to the Giants. And then, after I evaluate it, if I decide that you'd be a good guest, we'll schedule a time. And of course, this is restricted to people over the age of 18. Okay, enough said on that. On the official Giants website, in a Maria Gradato article, it is stated that Joc Pederson will be likely to be given a lot more at-bats at designated hitter in 2023. He's a good offensive player, not a good defensive one. Defense has been a serious issue for the Giants at multiple times in 2022, and they're going to give him a lot of DH at-bats, at least according to what people think. And really, what I've read, just in general, it seems to indicate that Pederson will be the Giants' primary DH in 2023. And if that's the case, it's a good thing because, honestly, that whole thing with rotating the DH spot just around your players to give players a partial day off, honestly, I think that's really dumb. I'm not saying there should be career full-time designated hitters. I'm not necessarily saying there shouldn't. I mean, you look at David Ortiz and what Edgar Martinez turned into later in his career. So I'm not saying either way about that. I'm really just saying that for a team, the best thing for them to do with that spot is really, and this can change as their roster changes. They look at their roster, they evaluate their roster, and then they take the option, they designate a particular player for DH, take the option that's going to give them the biggest advantage in terms of improving a batter's performance by allowing him to focus solely on his hitting, combined with keeping a poor defender out of the field. And certainly using the DH spot to keep injured players in the game is better than just rotating it, although I still don't like that. I think you designate a guy, get the biggest advantage in terms of keeping bad defense out and elevating offense when it does that for a particular player. And sometimes players at particular points in their careers need that more than at others, and sometimes just with a team's roster, the guy who's really the key DH, it's going to be different when the roster looks one way than when it looks another. Joc Pederson, he's not the biggest DH man in all of baseball, probably not, but for the guys the Giants have, he might be. Now you will recall I mentioned before that I would actually like it if Joey Bart was the Giants' primary DH because he still needs to come through with the bat. He's got tremendous potential, but he struggled at the plate and he needs to come through, and I just made a guess. Of course, it was speculation, but I think it was well-founded, at least to an extent. I speculated that Bart might come through easier if he's just allowed to focus on his hitting. And I really said I wondered if that was what Bart needed at this time, just to focus on his hitting, considering the fact that he has all that tremendous potential. And really, it would just be an evaluation of runs scored, runs prevented. I think you just have to calculate, if you're going to put Bart in that spot, it'd be, okay, how's Bart's offensive performance improved? And what's that likely to gain you? And, let's say Roberto Perez makes the opening day roster as the backup catcher. Obviously, he'd be the starting catcher then, and if his bat was a little bit weak in terms of what the Giants could come up with otherwise to replace him in the lineup, what's that going to cost him? Is it offset by Bart possibly getting hyped up a bit sooner? And then of course, Joc Pederson playing the outfield when he otherwise wouldn't have to. There'd be a lot of things to consider. But I do think that Joc Pederson, it's a really good idea to put him in at DH. I just think the evaluation should be done. Right now, I'm not saying one way or the other, whether Joey Bart or Joc Pederson should be the DH. I'm just saying the evaluation should be done, and whatever will score and save the most runs, that's the plan the Giants should go along with. Now, on the topic of Joey Bart, it's also been mentioned on the Giants website that, actually, I don't think it was there. No, excuse me. The Locked On Giants podcast with Ben Kaspick, he basically mentions that Gabe Kapler has said that Joey Bart's going to have to earn a spot in the opening day roster. He's not guaranteed a spot. That really comes as a blow to something I wrote about, because in a fairly recent Last Word on Sports article, I was trying to outline the Giants' catching situation, and I basically said there is no chance that Bart's not going to make the roster. That's literally what I wrote, but I realized that I was wrong now. I still think there's very little chance. I mean, is it likely that Austin Wynns or Roberto Perez will outperform Bart? It's not impossible, but I'm just not sure how likely it is. But Gabe Kapler's doing the right thing. And the front office, if they have a role, they're doing the right thing here. Nobody should be guaranteed a spot on an opening day roster just about ever. Certainly not Bart when he has yet to really perform in the major leagues, and that appears to be defensive as well as offensive, so he'll have to earn a spot. I think he ultimately will. He'll be better than his competition, unless the Giants just decide that the best thing for him is just to continue his development in the minors. But I think they're going to, at the catching position, they're going to go for the best guy offensively and defensively, just to help them win games, in the immediate. Now, I do wonder, I'm not saying this is the case, of course this is just speculation, I do wonder if Gabe Kapler made his decision on Bart, he's got to earn his spot, after looking at the Zips projections. I just wonder, because I read about the Zips projections, and Joey Bart was expected, according to the article I read by Dan Szymborski, Joey Bart was expected to strike out in a third of his plate appearances. That would be devastating, obviously. So I just wonder if Kapler took a look at those Zips projections, and he got to the part on Bart, and then he decided, he's not guaranteeing him a spot. That would fit in really well. I think that's a pretty good explanation. We don't know if Kapler looked at the Zips projections or not, but seems likely that he did. But all the same, I think Bart's going to be the starting catcher, just because I can't imagine that any of the competition would turn out to be better than him. But at the end of the day, Kapler's doing the right thing. Nobody should be guaranteed a spot. There are no locks on the opening day roster, at least with players that have options. In the article on the Giants website I had referenced before, it's also mentioned that the starting rotation, their performance was deflated quite a bit because of the Giants' poor defense, and it's something they have been addressing and they have to realign somehow. And I'm still not really impressed with the performances of starters like Alex Wood, Anthony DeSclafani. I don't think those pitchers were good. I think it is possible, though, the starting rotation was a bit better than it seemed to be. I know defense was a whole lot of it, and that's got to improve. And I think the other thing would just be in close games, the Giants' performance, it just really fell off in 2022. With an 81-81 record, if they could improve on that enough to get to 87. Well, the Phillies were the final National League wildcard spot last year, and they made it with an 87-75 record into the playoffs. So you consider what could happen for the Giants if they could just switch around the outcomes of maybe really a few games this year and then do better at the trade deadline. Now, in the starting rotation as it stands, their signing of Ross Stripling, was that as good as a re-signing of, say, Carlos Rodon would have been? I hate to say this, I don't quite think so. I would have preferred if they had re-signed Carlos Rodon, but as it is, they got Stripling. So whether that is going to be a bit of letdown, I don't know. I mean, Stripling might be great. He was a good signing for what was available on the market. I'm just saying I would rather have had Rodon. That's a subject of maybe a little bit of concern, but still, we're going to be optimistic, I hope, until we see differently about at least Ross Stripling and Logan Webb for the starting rotation. I don't think we're required to be as optimistic about Anthony DeSclafani. I mean, he's coming off an injury that took out almost his whole 2022 season, and you just never know how things are going to turn out there. But they're going to have a chance, obviously, to be evaluated in spring training, and we can see how things go from there. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. And the comment section, you know what it's there for. I will try to answer any questions you might have. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.